RWBY x JLA Hero and Huntsman Part 1. That is too long of a title. Was mediocre. And I think the biggest reason is because of the character interactions. And by that I mean it kind of suffered in the sense that while I would argue most people were on character, or in character, there were obviously exceptions. Like, for example, I think Diana, not basically not disrespecting, but not considering Bruce, Superman, Cyborg, Flash, all of these other characters to not be true warriors was very, very weird. Like, oh, they're not like warriors. I grew up on an island with a bunch of other warriors. You grew up on an island where it was safe, secure, and you had no external threats. Batman had his parents get murdered and then went on a globe-trotting adventure to master thousands of different fighting styles to become one of the best martial artists on the planet. Like, I feel like that alone proves him as a warrior, but he's also worked with Diana, because this is obviously the way it's set up in the film. The Justice League has already been established and everything is going relatively smoothly. They have like opponents like Kilgore. I don't know if Darkseid's been introduced, but most likely Lex Luthor. You know, all the classic Justice League villains have appeared. So that means Batman was most likely involved, and so was Superman and Vixen and Black Canary and all these other characters. So to have Diana completely dismiss them just feels out of character and very odd. And they do make the excuse that since they're all in teenage bodies, they're being affected in different ways. So it's hard to necessarily say what is off character or if that was intentional. Now, speaking of out of character, I would say that Batman being or wanting to stay in Remnant, where he has superpowers, is also extremely out of character. But it's not as big of Diana because it's not him actively diminishing the value of other people. It's more just him not having true confidence in himself, which is not an issue that Batman normally has. So it's quite odd. Apart from that, the RWBY characters, apart from RWBY herself, who's a little bit more nervous than what we expect from her in this position, but apart from that, everyone is typically on character for what is genuinely established. But exactly that, since they've been split up, like you have Diana, Yang, and Blake in one group, Batman and Weiss in another, Superman, Cyborg, Vixen, Flash, and Nora and Ren. So they've all been split up. So the character interactions are not as plentiful as you hoped for, and that leads to instances where Batman straight up doesn't have a conversation. He doesn't even say hi to RWBY, maybe in like the final act, and that's it. Diana has one line to Weiss, which is basically her saying, "Hi, it's nice to meet you," and then completely dismissing her for the rest of the movie, and rinse and repeat for most of them. Cyborg gets one interaction where he yells at RWBY and insults her, and like, it truly is really odd because most of the character interactions between all of the characters are genuinely negative, which, while creating tension between the two teams, is not necessarily how this crossover feels like it's meant to be. Now, obviously, I'd say negative. It's not horrible. Like, they're not punching each other or anything. I had no, I had no idea or intrusive thought saying that, oh, they're gonna all fight each other, and like it was not to that situation. However, the only two characters that I could see being positive reinforcements were John and Jess. Jessica Cruz is relatively new. She's not a very prominent Green Lantern, but her performance was pretty good in this movie. And on top of that, the voice work for all the characters, I would say, is pretty good, with the exception of, I would say, maybe Batman. And yeah, I just wanted to bring up voice work because the same lady who voices Android 18 voices Jessica Cruz in this movie, which is a nice little, But anyway, their dynamic is positive and helps. It allows them to both build up off of each other. John building through the fact that, a lot of people around him die, and Jessica getting over her major insecurities which hinder her helping people, So, those two were probably, I wouldn't, honestly, they might have been the best part. Also, the Green Lantern call in the mid portion of the movie was very, very impressive. I really applaud her for the voice work on that, a standout moment of the movie. But, yeah, it wouldn't necessarily write home about the characters. And as far as the animation goes, which helps bring them to life, that actually is very solid. Since this is the first RWBY movie, they definitely stepped up their game from the show, I would say. And, the lighting, shading, fluidity of movements is all very, very nice. They did not skim out on the animation for this movie, and I cannot be happier about it. I have yet to see part 2 of the time of this recording, but from what I have seen of the trailers, it looks to be just as good. Now, on to the main thing, which is mostly negatives. I know I was talking about them generally before, but here are the major ones. The choreography and overall pacing of the movie, along with the story, is not that good. The story was really, really predictable. The minute I saw the Grim glitching, I knew what kind of movie we were in for. But yeah, it does not benefit this movie. And the fact that they kind of make it mysterious when it is very easy to piece it together does not help. And it's not like the clues necessarily help us. It's normally when you watch something where, oh, something that the cast member does not, it fills in because you're like, oh, well, they're picking up clues. They saw very similar clues to us, and it seems like they didn't even try to figure it out. It felt very dumb. However, one bit that I liked was they talked about former villains, and it made them feel very experienced because they didn't really care about winding up in an alternate universe, which, I'll give them credit. It definitely helped out with cementing them as consistent, crime fighters. But with all that being said, I would say the movie on average is about a 6 out of 10. Now, unfortunately, we're going to get into more personal things. I find that really disappointing just because this is the first time RWBY has ever been in a movie format. So, as it's obviously been a show with 9 seasons and even an anime spin-off. But they've never had a movie. They've never broken into that. Yes, Volume 5 was in theaters, but that's not the same thing. I'm talking about a real movie, just like this. And for it to be a 6 out of 10, it just felt rather disappointing. And this isn't me trying to bash the creators, because, a lot of people were like, oh, they're doing it for money and to get experience. And I'm like, yeah, those are fair points. wanting your company to make money is kind of how companies work. So I do not blame them for making this decision. It's just that with such a lackluster like appearance for their first movie, I am quite disappointed. I'm hoping part 2 will be better. I have yet to watch part 2. From what I gather, it looks much more entertaining at the very least, and I'm just quite excited for it. However, with all that being said, part 2 is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting if they want me as an audience member and as a RWBY fan to be satisfied with the fact these films are made. I do not blame the staff whatsoever for making these films. They have every right to. It's just that as a fan, and as this being the first time RWBY's on screen, I wish it would have done a lot better. But that is personal gripes, which is why I saved it to after I gave the number score. You know, it's still a 6 out of 10. It's not a bad movie, especially as far as the animation goes. I have yet to announce this yet, but I'm probably going to be doing a fight breakdown of the fights in Justice League and RWBY parts 1 and 2 together. You know, the whole Let's Talk About Fights series. I made volume 9 about that part, so I'll be doing it again for these two. Anyway, without further ado, how did I feel about this movie? Well, the clip summed it up pretty well. It is much, much, much better. It's such an improvement. Now, granted, it's not perfect. It is not perfect by a mile. But it improved drastically. So, let's get into this stuff. Granted, it is a new movie, so I'll try not to spoil too much. But I can only do so much. Now, general plot. So apparently we find out that time moves differently in DC's world compared to Remnant. So where Remnant, the events happened in Volume 7, then they stated it's been a couple weeks, which is kind of crazy. That means that, like, even if you say, oh, that Volume 7 skip was, like, just before Volume 8 started, it would still only be, like, a couple weeks since they, you know, went through all that, then had Volume 9 happen, then, you know. Also, this movie is not canon, but this might confirm the theory that there is no actual time skip, because one of the popular theories was that, you know, RWBY's going to fast forward, and, like, I was guessing around 2 months, or between 2 months was my guess, just for everything to settle down. Plus, it will lead to everything being different. But that doesn't seem to be the case if this movie is considered canon. We don't know if well, we know it's technically not canon. Neither is the first one, but it might give us an idea. Anyway, so Grimm invaded, so they needed to contact their allies who have fought the Grimm previously. Well, that is Team RWBY. So Team RWBY gets transported into DC's world, and they receive new outfits and new powers. And they need to figure out who from their world is working with Kilgore in order to fight and inevitably defeat him. Everyone got that? Cool. Alright. So the plot isn't too crazy, but it does lend itself to a lot of action, which this film both exceeds and fails at. I will get into the fail part later. But for the most part, everything is good, and the action is definitely more intrinsically linked to the story this time, rather than, oh, we're going to go find Weiss. Oh no, the Grimm are attacking us because we went to go find Weiss. Now it's, you know, the Grimm are, it feels like an invasion and the big event. Granted, we don't get to see the other Justice League members. We only get to see the main ones that are in the trailer. So, and to be fair, it would be really difficult to, like, say, have Captain Marvel, Power Girl, Supergirl, the Bat family all take part in this. You know, they can only build so many 3D models, and I do not expect them to. But it was a little bit of it was a little bit disappointing. It did not feel as crazy as it should, but, you know, for what it is, it's really good. Now, after the story, we move on to the characters, and the characters are really weird. They give Weiss, RWBY, and Yang stuff to develop about and talk about. Blake doesn't do anything, so yeah. Then we have Yang, and once again, I kind of like what they were going for with Yang, but it's so weird because her story arc is basically RWBY is pushing herself a lot in recent times since they got back, and she's being more reckless and just doing as much as she can, and it seems like she's going to burn herself out. But, like, everyone kind of agrees that she's just being dramatic. Like, the literal point of the movie, her character arc is, well, she helps Flash through his, like, PTSD, I guess, with with the previous villain, or Kilgore, my apologies. And her arc is talking about getting over that and moving on. And then she moves on to accept the fact that RWBY is, like, not going to leave her, so she doesn't need to be that worried about her. Like, she can still worry, but, like, it's kind of crazy with how much she is, you know? That brings us into RWBY. RWBY's character arc doesn't really exist. Like, she's pushing herself a lot, and it's kind of funny watching this right after Volume 9, as it is a sequel. She is like, oh, you know, Huntsmen come and go, people die, even the greatest heroes die, so she wants to make the most out of the time she has. And that's a really good scene. And, you know, she has a nice little talk with Superman, and Superman is like, hey, you know, that's great, but just make sure you're not going to kill yourself. Because, like, she did take notably more riskier actions than she would have had prior, but at the same time, you can still tell she's very calculating at the time, and it's rather interesting to watch. Weiss is talking about her home and how she feels bad because, like, Jock, or her father, basically was kind of bad and did nothing, so she feels personally responsible for what happened to Atlas, and being a resident of Atlas and dealing with the fact that her home is gone, which was quite interesting. Also, she's the only one who didn't get into any of the new powers. Now, the problem is, Blake used her powers, like, in one fight, and it was shown very briefly. They were very cool. Blake and RWBY had cool powers, and Yang shot fire, and that's it. So, you know, it's kind of disappointing, especially since in the final fight, they went back to their old variant, so it's kind of like, why did you bother with this plot point in the first place? You know? But there's not much you can really do. Now, most of the characters are in the background and just sort of there to make quitty one-liners, or the fact that they are the Justice League, you know? Special shout out, though, to Troy Baker as Batman. Oh my goodness. Like, there are certain Batman that I just don't vibe with, and it's because Batman is so portrayed by his voice so much more than I would say most characters. Because here's the thing, you can have a mediocre Wonder Woman voice. If you have a mediocre Batman voice, suddenly it's not, oh, the voice performance, it's, wow, this Batman doesn't have the same amount of presence, you know? And I was really, really happy with that. Also, Travis Willingham, who played Superman, fantastic as well. Batman and Superman were done really well in this movie. However, Batman was out of commission for it for an extended period of time, which was a little disappointing. He also didn't do much in the movie, which, I don't know. However, Superman actually got to partake in a lot in this movie, which is weird, because normally it's the other way around, where Batman takes center stage, whereas the rest of DC's lineup kind of take a back seat. So it was a treat, to say the least. Speaking of treat, there's one more positive that I kind of want to gush about. So, as you all know from like my other YouTube videos and even like on my other channel, I do animation sometimes. So, when I say, and it's not professional, but when I say that the animation in this is really good, it means it is good. I at least know a little bit about what I'm talking about. It's so good. Also, something that I noticed the first time, but I've only found more love through it throughout finding clips for you guys for this video, is the lighting. Oh my goodness, the lighting is so good in this movie. And like, no one's ever going to talk about it. Ever. I guarantee you. Maybe I can like convince Smarter Soul to talk about the lighting, because he knows a decent chunk about it. But no one's going to talk about it, even though it's completely fantastic. Bro, when the sirens are going off and there's this bright red emergency glow on the characters while infiltrating an old like building that's run down and the security goes off, bright red lighting makes all the characters, you know, pop and gives this real intense and claustrophobic area. And on top of that, it's always smooth. But then guess what? It's not just, oh, so what? They developed red lighting for one scene. So many scenes have developed lighting so much better. Like, genuinely. It is so nice, because as I was watching the series, I see every single volume look better and better and better. And honestly, while there's not necessarily a fight that I like as much as the final fight in Volume 9, the animation, especially when it comes to the lighting, is phenomenal. Oh my goodness. The glow on some of these characters, from things like laptop screens, Green Lantern's ring, the digital zone. Oh, it's so fantastic. The light from the monitors when the room goes dark and it's like illuminating certain characters. Oh, it's so fantastic. And it's so, I don't want to say real, but it's so stylized in the world that it fits so fluently, you just can't help but go, damn, that's good. And no one's going to talk about it, but yeah, the lighting is damn good. And I stated before that the animation, the fight animation didn't top. But guess what? It was so good through most of the movie. So many good fights. I loved most of it. And the animation was good almost the entire time. I can rarely think of a time where it wasn't at least good, you know? Like, this is a good-looking film, and I am so happy about it. It's a improvement as far as animation goes when it comes to previous volumes of RWBY, and especially the first movie. Oh my goodness, comparing things like lighting and fluidity between the two movies, it's night and day, man. Listen, the one scene where I can think, oh, this shot came really well together, was probably Pyrrha's introduction in the movie, or Evil Pyrrha. And maybe the Green Lantern Oath scene. That had really dynamic lighting, everything fit together well, shots were good, dynamic, all that. But that's like 2 scenes in the movie. I swear I could find at least 12 that look like that in this. Not to mention the expression work, fantastic. I truly believe that this film is amazingly animated. Rooster Teeth said that if they wanted to try and like get experience when animating films, so that means if we ever get another RWBY film or volume 10 or whatever, if it's going to look even better than this, that's going to be insane. Like, genuinely. This looks better than some actual like big studio production animations. I cannot stress this enough. Any fault that I have with this movie is not a fault of the animators. They knocked it out of the park. And I know this is the section of the video where I'm probably the most intense. It's because I have animated stuff before, so I understand. I don't know what they did, but they did a damn good job. And hooey, man, RWBY's fluidity always impresses me. But now, not just the fluidity is impressive, everything's impressive. So yeah, animation is utterly fantastic. With all that out of the way, I'm going to talk about the major flaw of this movie, and that is the ending. So, listen, we had some really great fights. Really great fights in the beginning of the movie, I would say. I really like the claustrophobic scene that RWBY, Yang, Blake, and Weiss all had to fight in for the Lab 2 get in contact with the Justice League. That fight was extremely claustrophobic and exciting. Then you have the Grim Invasion. Blake's section of the Grim Invasion had a really nice sense of scale. Yang's was very mediocre. RWBY's was very good, portrayed speed well, and was a good opportunity to, let her shine, which thankfully I've noticed since Volume 9, RWBY has definitely become more prominent and feels more like the main character now, which is really appreciated. But then you get to the final fight, which, spoiler alert, you can just move ahead. Watts is the final villain. I know you probably all saw this coming, but Watts is the final villain, and he aligns with Kilgore, and there's a final fight. And, more importantly, he upgraded his mustache. I know. No, I'm dead serious. Okay, he comes back to life in this new body, right? You can only see his head. And the bloody mustache is upgraded. He has more facial hair now. The mustache is bigger. And I even double checked. I looked at old references of the movie. Not the movie, but the show. To make sure, is this different? It is. He upgraded his mustache canonically. And it's a hologram. I assume it's a hologram. But guess what? No matter what, he had to put effort into thinking about that. So that means he intentionally buffed his mustache. Oh. Anyway, back to the video. And the final fight is clunky. It probably has the worst choreography out of the entire movie. And, look, as much as I love Christopher Sabat, his voice performance, while excellent, as always, as Watts, I love Watts' voice, cannot save the finale. It can't. I was incredibly surprised with everything that happens, but not in a good way, more just, wow, that happened. And also another thing is it doesn't really feel like closure, because they trap the two AI programs, because Watts translated his mind into an AI and sent it to another universe, and they trap him in an AI box, basically. that just feels stupid. I'm sorry. But, like, they're not even like, oh, we downloaded their consciousness into a satellite that's connected to no other monitor on the planet and we shot it into space. That would make sense, at least. But it's just, like, apparently in the Hall of Justice. So there's a good chance, like, Kilgore or Watts can just, like, dip. And granted, I know, it just didn't feel that great of a finisher to me. Now, granted, you can't really have them killing, because DC heroes have this thing where they don't kill people. And with RWBY characters, it's a bit more ambiguous. It's a bit more unknown whether they're willing to take a life, but still to be noted. But they needed to defeat him in a satisfying way, and they did not. On top of that, the fight leading up to it was not that great either. As I already said, worst choreography. A notable point of dip is Wonder Woman versus Yang. Because Kilgore has the ability to invade other people's bodies, he taps into Wonder Woman for a sec. It is not good. I don't know what was going on, but Wonder Woman was kind of a disappointment and, didn't really do much and didn't really feel impactful. But I don't know. Not really much you can do about it, but that just emphasizes my point. Like, the ending does not land whatsoever. But it is saved. It is almost saved by one thing, and that is the soundtrack, okay? Because at the end of the movie, there's this great song that plays at the end as Team RWBY goes back to their world and the Justice League rises to go fight some crime, and it's blaring, and it's powerful, strong, and emotional, and that is the soundtrack for this movie. It is quite good. The soundtrack for the previous movie, I didn't talk about, because I didn't notice it at all. It was there, but this soundtrack was so much better. On top of that, it elevated a lot of scenes, and to be fair, a mediocre scene with a good soundtrack is better than a mediocre scene with a mediocre soundtrack. So, let's go. It worked. I did enjoy this movie a lot more. I don't want to ever say it's bad. It's not, because the whole movie is good. It's just the finale is bad. And to be fair, this is kind of a problem with RWBY. The finale always seems to fall apart. But the funny thing is, DC has been doing that too recently. Like, the most recent example is Justice League War World. That also fell apart at the end. So, I guess it's a trend now. I should have expected it. The most recent finale from these two series are Volume 9 and War World. So, kind of bad. I did think Volume 9's finale was actually good, but from RWBY's previous track record, normally the finales fall apart. And it just did here. But thanks to the soundtrack keeping it barely alive, the good vocal performances from actually everyone. I shouted out, Batman and Superman in particular, but everyone else did a really good job and a really solid performance. And I do actually want to shout out Barbara, who voices Yang. She can have some really off lines normally, but not today, but in this movie, she was quite on point. So, with all that being said, it did its best to salvage the very bad finale. It did not succeed, but it definitely elevated it to a higher plane. And that means that it's not dragging down the rest of the movie as much as, you would expect. So, honestly, I think I'm going to give this a 7... No, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. No. 7.5, yeah. 7.5 out of 10. I am very satisfied with this product, and while it only has, while it only has like 2 to 1.5 points higher than the previous movie, I would like to state that the difference between that is probably the biggest in the entire scoring system. Like, listen, guys, if you didn't like the first movie, you will like this one, okay? It's so much better. Anyway, that's just my personal opinion. Remember, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think of the movie. I've heard people say it's not good, and I don't personally see it unless you're talking about the finale. So if there were things that threw you off, I would actually really like to hear it, just some feedback. And without further ado, I'll see you guys later. Cheerio.